we're here today, just in full transparency, because we have to do a better job as a school district. We're communicating with our stakeholders. We have to do better and finding voice to get the voices in the space, and also being very clear around our why. There's a lot of action, things that were approved before my time here, before Ms. McGinnis, and before many of our team members, but we're still responsible for making the changes and moving and continue to move our facilities, but most importantly, like our educational programming in a direction that we can all live with and say it's great for our kids and our students. Today, you're going to hear from a couple of individuals. As you've seen the agenda, you're going to hear from our COO, who's going to talk about the largest reason why we're here is the whole idea around the Cross Keys Middle School and our decision to not move forward with that this school year or this cycle. The other thing you're going to hear from our CTAE director, Ms. Gunter. She's in here? Yes. Oh, right there in my face. So close, I couldn't see. You're going to hear from her because she's going to talk about the CTAE opportunities. We're not just throwing the word out reimagining for fun. We're really trying to reimagine. And it's a very complicated process as decisions were made 8, 9 years ago, 5 years ago, and enrollment has shifted. Things have changed. And it's my responsibility and our board's responsibility to make sure that we're fiscally safe with making decisions for the money that our taxpayers spend, but most importantly, really building the DeKalb that our students can thrive in. And so I know we have questions and challenges, and you're going to have an opportunity, you'll get the note cards, and I want to be honest with you, through the note card process, we're going to focus on questions that come specifically for this project. For those that have other questions that may go technical in other areas, we will actually take time. Mr. Palmer, our chief of staff, will be up on the other side. Some things you'll be able to answer today, and while others we'll actually put on our website, just like we do with our town halls. Because I know some people came here specifically for that work, and that's what we want to lean into. But when we talk about reimagining, Cross Keys, Sequoia High School, and Sequoia Middle School are going to be three schools. We have an opportunity here, as I've heard coming into this district, that CTAE is a huge ask. We looked at different opportunities. I was talking with Ms. Sarita. You may not have met our executive director for student assignment planning, Ms. Smith. She hit the ground running, and she's shared with us, and this is not new to you all, but we have 3 schools that have a specific magnet program that all feed into Chamblee High School. We also have an opportunity to think about reimagining and potentially uplifting, and you're going to learn more about this. These are just ideas, so this is not a marriage that we're saying we're doing these things, but we can do two-way immersion on a very high level for Cross Keys while taking this campus and making it a magnet program that's shared with a phenomenal CTA enhancement program facility. There are opportunities. So when we say reimagine, we mean that. Please understand the things that we share. The only thing that's factual tonight that we know we're doing right now is that we're not going to be able to still build the Cross Keys Middle School. We're building Sequoia High School. We're rebuilding Sequoia Middle. Those are facts. So I want to make sure that those things are going to happen. And we know that this is a community that has been deprived for quite some time. As I did my research coming in, but even learned more when talking with our board member, Ms. McGinnis, we must deliver on our promises and make sure that we create the best opportunity for families that we serve in this community. It's a hot community right now. You got new schools going up everywhere. It's exciting, right? You got Dresden, right, that's coming. You have the Sequoias combination that's coming. There's going to be some major renovation, modernization to this campus that we're standing in today. So please bear with us, and I just ask that everyone, we show respect, we operate within our age pride. So let's be humanizing in how we engage with each other. It's important. Everyone has a family to go home to some degree, and we want to be respectful of that. If you want to yell, catch me out on the side, I'll take it. But please make sure we respect the staff, and our staff is going to guarantee to respect you. We want to be professional in how we respond and how we engage, right? We want to operate with levels of integrity and dignity, and how we are. I would say more importantly, with the dignity that we keep our head above the board, and we know emotions are going to be high for some of these conversations. So I'm asking my team to do it with dignity, even if the passion is coming out in a very shaky, nasty kind of way. We know we want to still treat you with dignity and respect. And lastly, put ourselves in the shoes of the families that the school serves. And so I'm going to turn it over. I think it's Mr. Hofstadter's up next. I'm going to turn it over to our COO. He's been working hard. Let's give him a hand, and he's going to walk us through our why.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. It's good to see some of the same faces again. So we look forward to continue to hear from you and get your feedback. Tonight's going to be a little bit different. This isn't specifically about the Cross Keys High School project or any one specific project. Go ahead, next slide. Let's just get right down. What we're looking at is an ESPLOST 5 and an ESPLOST 6 update. As many of you know, right, it's no secret, we got to get moving on some of these projects that have been promised, okay? But with that, a lot of things have changed, all right? So let me just do a quick recap, all right? ESPLOST 5 collections ended in June of 2022. It began in July 17. Planning for ESPLOST 5 begins even before that, all right? Starts around June of 2015, almost 10 years ago, all right? So some of those projects in there began its inception back then. All right. ESPLOST 6 collections began in July of 2022. Planning for that began in 2019, 2020. Okay. And again, we're looking already at 5 years ago. All right. A couple of things have happened we need to look at reorganizing our whole approach in operations. And we've spent the last 16 months working on that as well in order to get this going. So just a couple of things that we can move forward with and where those opportunities are. All right. We've had several delays, especially between 20 and 2022. Not to bring up, but everybody knows what was going on there, right? Fortunately, many of us made it through, and we're here today. But in those delays, it just caused delays for a number of reasons, okay? We've had existing commitments with contracts that were put on hold due to the events of 2020 and therefore on, right? So there were legal commitments. Our project timelines, because of those delays, began to overlap with ESPLOST 6. Now there are several projects in ESPLOST 5 that had not yet begun that had the same schools that also had projects in ESPLOST 6. Because ESPLOST 5 started to collide with 6, we had to look at the best way to approach those projects and try to get it all done at one time, okay, instead of two separate projects. The other thing we were contending with, obviously, is cost escalations. We still watch that today very closely. Our contractor schedule capacity. Many of our contractors were already scheduled out. They're also in other school districts. They only had so many workers at so much time, and the things that they can commit to in order to meet those schedules, all right? So that is something that we still watch after even today. All right, and then of course you had all kinds of a number of other little things all added up together, created this whole thing about, all right, what are we going to do here to get moving? All right. So a couple of the considerations that also happened during this time, which does have an impact on planning. One, enrollment changes. Okay. We've seen staffing challenges. All right. And then we also see the educational programming. All right, what do we want our schools to be? And I think Dr. Horton did a great lead in about that, about reimagining the way forward. Thank you. Next one. All right, so that's a rehash here of how we kind of got to where we are. Obviously, many of you can go back even further than that because you were here. It's not going? There we go. Okay. I got to push it, huh? Technology. Love it. All right, so working with the team, how do we get a way forward with all the projects that have yet to be started to happen in SPLOST 5, as well as start moving on SPLOST 6, so we don't keep bringing these delays with us moving into the future. Couple of the considerations and a lot of the tasks that were going on with our team for the last, again, about 12, 14 months. One, we had to continue to spend energy and resources on current projects. So we already had some in motion that we still have to manage and we have to work through and get going. Some that we're about to at all different phases. So all those are currently happening now. They will continue this summer. Another piece to this is we have 18 projects that are not ESPLOST, that are capital improvement projects, HVAC and roofing. That's also tying up our contractors, but also takes resources of our team in order to make this happen, okay? But they're being funded through other means, all right? We had to start looking at revising our cost estimates, all right, and how we're going to do that. And I use the word estimates because it's very important to understand that in the past, people were using the word budgets, okay? And really they mean two different things. I can try to estimate what something may cost 5 years from now, just like everyone here does. But if I say that's a budget, that becomes a hard number. I can't tell you that's a hard number because we got a long way to go before we get there, all right? So we're trying to convert ourselves to using the word cost estimates. Once those projects and contracts are approved by our board, that is a contract with an actual amount of money tied to it. That then becomes the budget, all right? But we don't get there until we get the approval. But we do have to take in estimating, right? So we don't outspend what we think we can do, all right? The other thing is we had to look at our procurement approaches. All right, procurement is a big thing, doesn't get talked about very much, but it drives a lot of any kind of construction business. And how you have to work with procurement in the length of times, all the other considerations that go along with that. Then we had to look at also our construction approach. You may have heard us start talking of differences between design, bid, build, which is right, architect designs it, they're done, we take those plans, we bid them out to the lowest bidder, all right? Lowest responsible bidder, I should say, all right? And then we work from there and we try to get it all done. What we're starting to adjust to is what we call construction manager at risk, where we bring the construction management team, all right, on early with the architect, and that creates a three entity team, right? The owner, the architect, and the contractor. The value of this is that we can bundle some projects together to help move and speed that process up and gain time on the procurement process. But at the same time, we're getting the expertise of our contractors early into the design, okay? And that's very important because your contractor is the one who understands the current market conditions, what code's gonna really require versus the architect, and they work together to make sure that we are staying as close as we can to those cost estimates as we plan and design the project together. Once that happens, then that contractor will then bid it out, and then we come back with what we call the guaranteed maximum price. That is a contract. All right, upon approval, team mobilizes and bulldozers begin, okay? So these are all the considerations about moving forward and things we had to do with all our staff and colleagues and other divisions and anybody who touched this in order to get this moving, while keep remembering also continuing on with getting those other projects and keeping those moving through. So it's been quite an effort. All right. Now in SPLOST 5, we see there's 32 ESPLOST projects from 5 ESPLOST projects in 5 at approximately 50 schools requiring some form of facility, all right, improvement. Some of them are large-scale type renovations, and some are just roofs, some are roofs and HVAC systems, and anything in between, okay? But those are things that we need to get done. When we look at SPLOST 6, it was designed a little different. It touches all 140 schools, okay? Not all of those will be actual construction projects, but we will be doing quite a bit of extensive IT infrastructure projects, okay? Jump back one more time. Oh, how do I go back? Yeah, okay. But what is important to note that they're all gonna happen at 140 different schools, all right? All our school sites has a SPLOST project, but in those 104 of those schools are actual facility improvements somewhere in there that's gonna require some type of construction, okay? So there's a big lift that we need to get moving on. All right, thank you. So here's what we're proposing as a way forward. When we added all this up of what's remaining estimates in SPLOST 5, we're looking at a estimate right now of $697 million total from SPLOST 5. SPLOST 5 generated $649,300,000. Okay, that money's already here, but we need to start spending it. Long story short, we're about $47 million over the original estimates of projects, okay, due to all the things we just talked about. In SPLOST 6, okay, again, it started in July of 2022, so we are getting close to almost 2 years of the 5 into it. We've been having those collections. Collections are coming in on or exceeding our forecasted estimates, but based on all the projects that we're proposing, we're looking at probably spending $722 million by the time it's all said and done, but we're looking at generating revenue of $780 million. And we are on current track to do that, all right? But again, that keeps coming every month through June of 2027, okay? So we got to continue to watch and track this. Bottom line, in SPLOST 6, we're looking at over $57 million, all right, collecting more than what we are forecasting to spend at this time. So that gives us just about $10 million buffer to finish all the projects in SPLOST 5, where cost escalations exceeded the original estimate, right? And finish out projects in SPLOST 6, okay? And we'll continue to track that. Now, again, I just want to keep going over this for estimated revenues, all right? ESPLOST 5, that's an actual number. That's been collected and done. That's how much we collected. The one for 6, again, we're a little on the conservative side when you plan, right? We're going to plan for a little less conservative on how much we're going to get back, and we're going to overestimate just some on what it's going to cost us, just like you would do any of your household budgets, all right? So that's kind of built in and reflected here. Now, here is our key, and I've challenged the team. It's a very aggressive goal, but we want to have all those projects in 5 and 6 done by the end of 2027. We have a schedule to do that, but it's going to require a lot of energy, a lot of coordination, right? But the team is up to it, and that's what we're tasked. So we're looking at a good 3 years of just constantly moving. Now, many of those projects will start being completed before then, but we want that last one to be done by the end of 2027. The only exception we may have right now is the Sequoia High School project right now, okay? But again, this is what we monitor, and we're going to adjust, okay? And we're going to keep putting those out quarterly based on those new estimates, market conditions, and everything else, so we can keep tracking, all right? Now, in order to get our estimates at completion, there were a couple of projects that we needed to evaluate whether or not we needed to move forward with them, all right? We had 3 sprinkler installation projects. Those are being incorporated into other projects where required by the fire marshal. This one generated almost $30 million extra to meet the cost escalations. We had talked about the Dunwoody-Chamblee Elementary School project that goes back a few years, and we also put out some memorandums earlier this year about canceling that contract and the reasons why. The last one is we hear a lot about New Cross Keys Middle School. Again, this was something that was planned back in 2019 and proposed at that point, okay? It was planned and proposed in 2019. What we'll see here is why we're recommending what we're recommending. All right. There we go. No. No. All right. This one's focused more on Dunwoody-Chamblee Elementary School. Briefly go over it. When we look at where all the heat spots are, you can see obviously the yellows are the main concentration and density of where our students and our children live. Okay. Real quick, early 2020, the plan was to build at that Shallowford site for the Dunwoody-Chamblee and to help relieve overcrowding at these schools here. All right. That was in 2020. At 2019, you could see where the capacity levels were for all the elementary schools that could somehow feed into that new school or help relieve or be relieved, one or the other, okay? But what we saw here is enrollment at the time was 10,426. All right. And our capacity was just under that, simply right around about 10,000 seats. All right. That was in 2019, 2020. Okay. And that was expected to continue that way. We started seeing plans. Some of you might remember this. Mobiles were brought in, started looking at redistricting up to 800 students. There was, let's see, Austin Elementary, I think, came online right about the year after. So that one was being proposed. And you saw the Nancy Creek, where we have Carrie Reynolds is currently occupying that, right? So that was the plan back in 20 and 2021. And then we all know what started to happen at that point. Oh, how do we go back one? Okay. I think we did that one, didn't we? Oh, I didn't do that one. Okay, sorry. All right, so again, at that point, again in 1920, that's where the new elementary school says, let's go ahead and build it. That was the plan because all the data indicated that at the time. All right. All right, now look today, here in 2023 numbers. This was our FTE in October. All right, this just past October. Lots changed in that elementary capacity, the number of children. And you see that sharp deceleration or lowering or a decline in actual elementary students enrolled. And today, right now, we're at 9,142 elementary students, well below the current capacity, what's there without building the Dunwoody-Chamblee Elementary School. All right? And then you can see where current forecasts out to 2030 kind of keeps it right in that range. Okay? So this would indicate to us that we need to look at a different means of how do we relieve those schools that need to be relieved, and how do we help fill the schools that have space. All right? It's not necessarily a construction project at this time. Okay? All right, now let's get moving here. Oh, and then now here the new plan with the new Dresden Elementary. It gives several different options that we have going forward. All right. Okay. All right, now middle school. So we'll focus a little bit more on Cross Keys Middle School and how we arrived at our decision. Again, let's go back 5 years, 2019 and 20. Middle school capacity, all right, was at 5,000, just over 5,000 seats. All right. Enrollment was already at 5,800. Okay. It would tell you that we probably need to build a middle school. And that's how that project was originated, more or less. The data supported it. Okay. We go to 2023, again, just like everything else in 2020, nationwide, not, it also happened here in DeKalb, from year to year. These are actual FTE numbers on October. And here we are at this year, right at 5,112, and we have just about 5,070 seats. So we're almost right at capacity for the number of students. All right. And then as we look out to 2030, forecast enrollment has that number slowly continuing to decline for middle school children, and yet we can keep the same amount of seats. This is how we arrived with the data. Do we need to spend money right now on a new middle school? Okay. It's not a never. It's just right now we don't have anything to support that, but we still have 104 other needs that we know we need to have, building renewals and other things. Okay. So we're going to continue to monitor this. That is how we arrived at this discussion and these recommendations that'll be going for the board. Real quick, let me tell you about the high school because there's questions about Sequoia High. Currently in 2023, our number right now is 7,795, and our capacity is at 6,200. Okay? When Sequoia comes online, we project that to get up to around 7,800, and that's why it's there. Okay? So at the time, it appears that we need this. Okay? And again, out to 2030, we will start to see a slow decline. When you see a decline in middle school, you see a decline in elementary, that tells you got 10 years worth of decline coming your way. Obviously, it may impact the high school. So we're going to see that capacity with Sequoia to actually have some extra capacity if need be. It's important. It's close, but it's important because as soon as that goes down, it could also begin to change. And that's why we have very good partnerships Mayor Park and Councilmember Funny, we talk quite a bit. We look at what all our cities are doing because, any kind of economic development has an impact on schools. So it's very important that we look, we plan, we collaborate, we align together, all right? So that we can provide the best school product that we can and facility. All right, so that's how we arrived at where we arrived. That's being recommended to the board on May 6th, next Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hofstadter. At this time, if you'd raise your hand if you have questions at this time, we'll be happy to take a few before we transition into our next presentation. And good evening, by the way. My name is Yolanda Williamson, Chief of Community Engagement Innovative Partnerships. Happy to be here this evening with you. Okay. Yes, she's coming to pick them up. If you raise your hand, they can come pick them up. Mr. Hofstadter, here's the first question. The estimate at completion for Cross Keys High School modernization is $147 million. The budget is $81.25 million. What is the plan for this $66 million budget shortfall?
All right, and thank you for asking that question. So when we talk about cost estimates, right? There's more things that hit SPLOST and opening up a school than just the construction piece. That $147 million also has room in there for things such as technology, for furniture, and anything else that you may need to be able to operate that school. All right, now, we fully expect our construction contract to be quite a bit less. We're looking at somewhere around $125 million, but we're finalizing that now, and that'll come, okay? So, the estimates at completion, again, these are high-level estimates at this time. It includes, again, things like technology, things like furniture, right? Desks, all that kind of stuff, and even some architecture and engineering, all right, and other examples. Our goal is to make sure we come under all those estimates.
But the difference in the dollars, I think, which is being asked, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, so how do we figure out how to get there? Again, when we go back to that slide, in order to make that happen, that shortfall, all the estimates that we have, that 147 million, is built into that right now. But in order to make that number happen, we have to recommend holding on those other projects and reallocating the money to the other projects, okay? I think we go right here, okay. So these projects here, along with all the other projects that are currently happening, anytime those projects, right, we'll get some money back on many of those because, again, they're a little over budgeted. When you throw all that into program contingency, okay, and reallocate that, yep. Each one of the sprinkler projects were roughly about $10 million. They were different packages. Together, they were right in the ballpark of $30 to $31 million estimates. Okay, Dunwoody Chambly was a $36 million budget. We spent about $6 million of that, so we got a $29 to $30 million coming from there. The new Cross Keys Middle School, again, it wasn't ever into a budget, but the original cost estimates that were shared was somewhere in the ballpark of $90 million. Okay, in order to build that. By taking the 90, by taking the 30, and the other remaining 30, that gives you about $150 million to complete all the other projects on there. That data says that we do need to have at this time. Okay?
The next question is, will this deck be available online? Yes, it will. We will post it on the website. Also, Mr. Hofstetter, on what facts is your 2025-2030 student populations projections based? How are these showing a decrease in Cross Keys High School, Sequoia High School clusters when most cluster elementaries are over and increasing? Sequoia.
All right, so the question, so if they're increasing. Gotcha. Okay. So how we arrived at those estimates, again, when we look at the area elementary schools, all right, we have area elementary schools. Some schools are at or above capacity. Some schools are at 68%. So there's plenty of seats there. Understand, it also determines on what programs are there and how you measure capacity. All right, so that's one piece to this. With the new Dresden coming online, it will be a larger school and it will have extra seats. All right, we anticipate right now having somewhere between 225 additional students that could attend that school to help relieve anything that is in there. But we also have several other schools in the area, and this is where we get into the student assignment group. Let's see. Well, it's going crazy here. Keep going, right there, right here. So when you look at the new Dresden Elementary, one, that'll provide more additional seats, added seats. We still have some capacity over here at John Lewis, and then you got Pleasantdale Elementary also available there. Now those are the three schools. We also have Nancy Creek. When Dresden opens, Carrie Reynolds, right, who is currently occupying that building right now, is swing space, if you want to call it that, that will go away as those students will then somehow find a reimagined attendance area, okay, which will allow Nancy Creek to open and provide space for those that may need it as an option.
And the other thing that we can do, we have a demographer on our staff that leads this, Hans. So we don't make these numbers up based off what we're counting. We go through, there's a whole formula. I'm not a demographer. What we can do is have Hans to share in the responses what the process looks like, not the details that go into the weeds of it, but really explain how the projections are set up. I think that's what's most important, that there is a formal process. And the other thing, we get our numbers validated just recently by, what company was that? By Cropper GIS. That just basically says that they've done research on our process for projections, and that it's approved and validated. So this is really where we get our numbers from.
And I encourage everyone, please go to our website. On the operations, you'll see a tab called planning. There is tons of data there right down to the individual schools. It also talks about the methodology and how those are calculated and how it's forecasted. So we please encourage you to go. There's plenty of public information that you can see.
We'll take one more question, and we have other questions also that we still want to be able to respond to. But Dr. Horton, if it's okay, keep moving. Okay, we'll keep moving. Next one, Mr. Hofstetter. Please explain the frequency and scope of reviewing actual enrollment and enrollment forecasts and the impact of this on ESPLOST projects.
It's the same answer as before. On our website, if you go to that page, it will show you exactly how we're doing projections, how often we do it. We actually do this, if I'm not mistaken, it's an annual, yeah.
That's correct. The annual forecasts have always been on the October FTE, all right? That's our official benchmark that we can compare from year to year, okay? That's the official count of children on the first Tuesday in October that are physically in our school. Now, we do go and validate because there is a second smaller FTE period in the first week of March. Students come and go, right, during the year. We do look at those, but our official forecasts are based on the October, okay? But we do also look at the March just to see if there's a trend going up or down as the year progresses, all right? And we'll make adjustments. Again, that's all on the website, all on the website. Yep. Yep. Yep.
This one is actually for Ms. Davis. I don't know if it's a part of your presentation today, but I noticed that the estimate at completion data for the ESPLOST 6 IT projects is still $129 million, the very same amount it was last year. Has this been updated? If not, will there be a formal cost check revision process?
Yes, as we make expenditures for our projects, this amount will be updated. Absolutely. Yes, the money from six has not been spent because those projects are just beginning. So if that answers that. So the projects that we're working on currently, okay.
Yeah, I'll try to help explain that. So again, we have 140 projects. Some of those are primarily technology in ESPLOST 6, okay? There's no construction projects going on, but there are network and improvements, okay? That 129 million is largely based on that. Now, where we do have large facility projects, tech is also included into those. So it's spread out so that we have a joint approach. It's all coming basically out of the same ESPLOST bucket, all right? But the finished product is the same. So it's a different approach to doing it, okay? But it is accounted for in there. Now, again, it's estimates. Sorry? Yes, yeah, and the procurement process is obviously well involved in that as well. Again, the key word, these are estimates. They will continue to be analyzed, and our goal is to update them in our quarterly report that we publish each quarter. Those estimates may go up and down based on all kinds of conditions. Okay? Yes, they will change. Spoiler alert, between now and the next 3 years, something will change in there.
Thank you. Did you account for redevelopment that would occur along Beaufort Highway and the new employment center at CHOA, 6,000 daytime population in your forecast?
So it's very difficult sometimes to forecast what a place. Let me back up. Again, our forecasts are based on hard number FTE periods, right? They do show trends. Redevelopment is extremely important in the planning. It's why we've been developing these relationships. We've been watching all the redevelopment by all the different cities and the county, okay? Yes, we're well aware of the big hospital that's going up. We're also, what was the other one? Yes, we're watching all the redevelopment. That's why we update our numbers annually. What is interesting, and you could research this right now, but we're all seeing it across the country. Birth rates have lowered over the last 20 years, and we knew that was coming. All right, you could see it. The numbers were there, right? People are having dogs, not children. I mean, it just, maybe we should open up doggy school. I don't know, man. Dog obedience school or something. But that's what you're basically seeing. So we knew that was coming. With the pandemic, what we saw was an acceleration of those declines. The question is where did those children go? And we have several companies, including Cropper and Davis Demographics, all these large demographics are all seeing the same thing. It's one of those phenomena. But we are starting to see it level off so that we can get back to better statistical formulas and what that presents. There are methods that we do account for with new housing. It's all part of the methodology. All right, how many houses of that range, of that size bedroom, if it's 6 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, at what price point, well, how many children does that generally yield? Based on statistical math, yes, we put those quotients in there, okay? It's very complex.
Mr. Hofstetter, are you able to comment on the estimated capacity of the future Sequoia and Cross Keys high schools?
Yes. I'm sorry, yeah. I'll tell you Sequoia real quick, and when we introduced that project, what you have there is basically from a facility standpoint, okay? It is built for any classroom, meets all requirements from kindergarten through 12th grade. So it can handle for the next 50 years any combination of grade bands, whether it's a large middle, large high, split middle, split high, K-12, whatever. From a facility standpoint, it will meet those requirements. Okay. Currently, our anticipated design is a 1,600 seat middle school and a 1,400 seat high school. Now, measuring capacity for each is a little bit different because you have different class sizes and how they're allotted and things of that nature. But basically what you're going to see there, it can accommodate and build for at least 3,000 children of varying ages, however you want to look at it. Okay.
And for the cross keys, hopefully when we get through with the questions here, we're gonna go into the reimagining zone to talk about cross keys and projecting what that enrollment would be very challenging, depending on the district and the community. We decide to lean into enhancing the CTAE and enhancing possibly two-way immersion or enhancing some other magnet program. So there's just conversations that we're gonna have in our next section that will kind of give us some ideas. We have no commitment or merit, we're not married to it, but it's important that we discuss it.
Thank you. While that question was on future capacity, this one is on current capacity. The current capacity calculation methodology is flawed. Have capacities been updated?
I'll approach it this way. Capacities, again, is a range. And it's a range because of different programs require different levels or of class sizes. So while I can tell you for a general education student according to the Department of Education, I can tell you what that classroom can hold. By our class size allotments, I can tell you what that classroom can hold. I can tell you what the fire marshal will allow in there because they're all different formulas on how things are calculated. All right, we look at a range, but it's based on what programs are there, what are those class size limitations, because that will obviously reduce the space. All right, so think of it as a range, not necessarily a hard number. The answer to that question using that is yes.
And I would just like to add something that we are doing with the student assignment process that we have to be able to get to. We have schools, I'll use a school that's not in the area, that have 2,400 students, but it was capacity, even with usage, was 1,800. So what do as a district? We add trailers. We add trailers. And we add trailers. So we don't have management of enrollment process. That's something that we will be bringing to the district so that we can manage that. Schools do have capacities. Whether it's legit or we don't believe the numbers, every building is built with a capacity, and especially when you're talking about the usage. So those are some other conversations that we're going to have across the district. Not just unique to this community where we can't keep, every time we move a family into a community and we add trailers, we have to figure out what's the enrollment management process is going to be for us, communicate that with our families so they can understand, and also set up the alternative locations for schools when schools are at their 90 percentile or 95. We should not have schools sitting at 151% in capacity. That's not right. And we owe better to our community. So, all right.
Thank you. I have a three-parter here, Mr. Hofstadter. Again, related to projections. If projections turn out to be wrong, how can we trust the revised projections?
Yeah, okay, so if our current, let me make sure I understand, our current projections, if they turn out to be wrong? Yeah. Oh, right. Listen, yeah, and that's why I said this is a forecast, okay? We are looking at a forecast. It's what we have right now that will help us do that. That's why we update it every year, because there are anomalies that do happen. And we do see that around the district at certain schools. We see it when a new apartment building may come on, or when you have an apartment with different rent incentives, and a lot of our families will move down the street and be in a different attendance zone, and all of a sudden you got a school that's overcrowded, but their seats where they were, right? So you'll see different migration patterns for different reasons. That's why we track it every year, and we revise, and we look at that data so that we can see it happen, okay? I think that's the best way I can explain it. Again, those are forecasts, like an estimate, but we do watch.
And I would just add really quickly, I believe if you look over the last 3 to 4 years, projections were really wonky. COVID did a number on us, all right? And even with our projections prior to COVID, it changed some things for our families, for our community. So there's no exact way, of course, and no one expects this, I get it, to be to the exact student, but our numbers historically have yeah, okay. Yep, 74%. 74 students were off. Yep. That's a really nice number. If I was a betting person, I don't bet. I'm rolling in. Yeah. Yeah, that's better than the weather service. I agree. Yes.
Thank you. We're winding down to the last few before we're able to move to our next presentation. Where will Montclair, Woodward, and John Lewis go to middle school?
Again, when these schools start coming online, obviously there has to be a reimagining of the attendance zones. There's a process for that will happen in parallel to the actual construction. Again, construction takes almost 2 years. So during that time, that's when those processes will go, and it'll line up, and we'll go as fast as the community allows it, and the process will yield. The process will then tell us where they go. And that'll be based on obviously a number of other factors to consider, okay?
Please get active when we release the applications for student assignment planning. When, Ms. Smith? Hopefully, it's made tomorrow. Yeah, it's a commitment. We're asking for a commitment. And we'll talk more about student assignment in a different meeting, but just know we're going to work through student assignment planning with community members across the district being a part of that, because we have to shift some boundaries. We're going to have to shift some of the alignment in our feeder schools. Like in our next conversation, if Cross Keys is the feeder school for Sequoia right now, but we're building a Sequoia High School, we have 2 feeder patterns and create this gap in efficiency. So we're going to talk about that. All right.
Why are we using Cross Keys High School as a laboratory for testing change while we have a new building at Doraville? Cross Keys High School is a community, I'm sorry, I can't read the rest of it. Okay, yeah, I can't understand the rest of the words.
I think there's one, I'll just be very clear. I think we talk about feeder patterns being a challenge. Sequoia Middle, potentially feeder pattern will shift to Sequoia High School, which makes alignment and location, all of that would make sense. But I'll say, I know location may not, as we've talked about, centralized, maybe Sequoia location may be a little bit more centered, but to have the CTA school right next door to the middle school and then the high school here could create its challenges. But more importantly, CTAE has been the home. This has been their home here in Cross Keys. So it gives us the opportunity. We don't want to pull the resource from this community. So this is why it's a discussion topic right now.
Why wouldn't we have a smaller capacity middle and high school combo here at Cross Keys as an interim?
We can reimagine that as well. I mean, I guess it really just depends how many students that we're really speaking of. It can accommodate certain amounts of that, but that would be another thing that could be looked at, another option.
And then just the land. We, like Cross Keys, we have we're pretty tight in some of the spaces. So to put 2 campuses here, thinking about a middle and a high, I think that it could be done, but we're still going to have to shift a boatload of students to Sequoia because the capacity here will go down significantly for high school and middle. So but that doesn't mean that that's off the table. We want to be able to work with you and talk about some other options, but that will be a very challenging option. Okay.
Our final question before we move to our next presentation. Have you done an analysis of private school enrollment and the potential for possible movement of students back to public school?
Yes, we do that every year as well. We have access to all private school enrollment numbers, particularly the ones who specially share their enrollment with us. But then we also have all homeschool children as well who are registered with the state. We do contemplate and account for those items because obviously they do have an impact.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hofstadter. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Ms. Sarita Smith, our Executive Director for Student Assignment, accompanied by Ms. Dorianne Gunter, CTAE Director. Thank you.
Hello. So we are here just to share a little bit about CTAE and the possibilities here at Cross Keys High School as you guys get this modernization with the SPLOST 5 and 6 funding. And I think Mr. Hofstadter hit on this pretty well. I just wanted to make sure we understood that we know that a lot of the money has been accounted for already, but we want to really take the student assignment process and align it. And I think someone did ask a question about like priorities with SPLOST funding. And we're really hoping that the student assignment process aligns with that now so that your voices along with district data is connected to how those SPLOST funds are prioritized and spent. So a lot of the student assignment process that will happen is going to align very well with SPLOST 7, but we know that there are some priorities and considerations that we're developing along with the board and Dr. Horton that we could start implementing as some of this stuff is coming on board. So we look at a lot of data. There is almost 2,000 students here at this school. That is a hefty number. This is my first time at the campus, driving around this campus. I'm not a mathematician, but it doesn't feel like 2,000 students could fit here on this campus. So hence all of the trailers. And really looking at our CTAE programming in the building, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's also really important to determine if there are a lot of students outside of the boundaries coming here. So that number isn't super large here at Cross Keys, but these are just some of the things that we look at as we think about the programming and reimagining. Because if we are reimagining because 500 kids are coming here that don't belong here, that's a timeout. Like, let's think about that. Like, are we doing this for kids that don't even live here yet versus students who are assigned? So those are just some of the things that we look at when we look at enrollment data as we're going through the student assignment process. Then I'll hand it over about some CTAE.
Good evening, everyone. When you talk about CTAE, of course, it stands for Career Technical and Agricultural Education. And what the aim and goal of CTAE is to connect the academic learning that's happening in their core content classrooms to technical opportunities for them to learn. We work with the workforce development in the metro area. We work with economic development in the state of Georgia when we're determining what pathways we want to offer in our programs. And so the goal here will be to create an opportunity for students to be exposed to more career opportunities, more career pathways in both high-skilled and high-wage professions. When you look at all of the development that's happened in the area, someone spoke about development earlier. The school is where we create and make the people that will push out into the world and work. So we pulled a little bit of data just to share. Cross Keys is unique in a couple of different ways. They have their own CTAE pathways housed here at Cross Keys High School. And then there's also the DeKalb High School of Technology North with 9 additional pathways. So a wonderful opportunity to grow and enhance when you look at what pathways are available. There are 9 pathways here. We've shared some enrollment. Of course, this will be available online for you. But when we talk about reimagining what CTAE, I see those numbers increasing, and I see the number of pathways that we offer. We do surveys with students. We do surveys with community partners. We have advisory committees that meet multiple times a year that help us determine this is what you need to be offering in your school based on your community needs. So the Tech High School North data is here. There's also a technical high school in the South. That school has 12 pathways available for any student in the district can attend, but ultimately there are programs here that students that attend Cross Keys and northern schools may not be able to attain. So we want to ensure that all programs are available, continue to be available for our students. We also want to look at, are we offering what students want? Are we offering what the community needs?
So you keep hearing reimagining, reimagining, and truthfully, we really have to start thinking about what the possibilities are. So reimagining means we're doing something different. This is an opportunity. You have a new middle high school coming online. You have a revised elementary school coming online. You have some expansion here happening. So with this space, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to keep doing the same thing that we've been doing. And so when we're looking at the CTAE, both there's some very strong board advocacy around this. There's district advocacy. There's student desire around CTAE. So what would that look like if we reimagine that for schools in the north side part of the district? Right now, even though the numbers are low, that we have already identified challenges on the why that number is low, and we want to make sure that we are not shifting or taking anything away from a community when we could really be enhancing it. There are also a lot of partnerships, like knocking at the door to partner with us in the district around CTAE. And right now, we don't have enough data to really push those. So this is an opportunity, again, to get more data from our students and our families about what is needed in order to really develop and grow that, and then maybe advocate for it in a different way and do some different type of marketing for it right now. Because our marketing up north is a little lacking, and we need to do better about what the possibilities are and how students can attain that up north. Back one. And then on the magnet program side, we also have a lot of documented data that magnet programming, especially high achieving magnet programming, is knocking at the doors up north. There's over 500 students already in a high achieving magnet program, but there's only one available right now. So either we need to think about how do you reimagine more opportunities or more seats for that, and where those seats belong for students that are asking for that. Because even though 500 are in it, that doesn't mean we accepted all of those students. And just reviewing the magnet programming in general is on the desk, on the table for student assignment, and that is not just what's happening here. We're talking across the district. And we'll be posing some challenging questions around that. And really, again, understanding what the real need is and what are the outcomes, right? So when we present this data in our student assignment process, and as we go to the different areas, we will be asking real questions like, is there data that says that kids in these magnet programs are doing X versus the data that says kids at their homeschool are doing Y? Because we're investing money in spaces and programs, and the outcomes are not vastly different, we'll be posing some real questions about, is that where our money and our time belongs? So there's a lot of possibilities with more seats, more schools coming online that we really will be diving deep into as the student assignment process begins. So this is just a little teaser, if you will, on how that process will work. I also want to add that in the student assignment process, it's not only the voices that show up to the meetings and the loudest voices that will get the attention. And I want to be very adamant about that we will be, with Dr. Williamson's team, pushing this out to various communities. Just because they do not show up does not mean their voice will not be on the table, and that we will not consider that in our process. Questions?
Thank you so much for that. Yes, we'll take questions at this time. So far, we have, why can't more CTAE programs be offered at more schools? My son could not take automotive because there was no transportation available.
So I think this helps reimagine and creates more opportunities for that. We offer CTAE pathway programs. In the past, they've been offered kind of based on interest, based on middle school feeder patterns, if you will, because the idea is to create a student can experience, and I shared this with our principals a little bit earlier this week, we want K-12 CTAE opportunities for students, not just middle and high school. And so the goal would be to expose them K through 5 exploration. What does a truck driver do? What training is needed for a nurse? What is the engineer? Is it somebody who pushes the train forward, or is it somebody who is determining where cell phone sites go? And then in middle school, giving them the opportunity to really embrace what training is required to do the work. And then by the time they get to high school, they have hands-on experience and exposure to the content. So why can't we have more programs at schools? We can. This is a part of that process. If we can't have it at the residential high school, then there's other ways and opportunities for students to connect the dots with careers. We also want to tie in those post-secondary opportunities and dual enrollment opportunities as well.
Just really quick on this one, I think what's important too to that question, you may have a student that's interested in 3 or 4 interested in automotive in one campus, but don't have the audience of individuals who still want to do that. But having a hub allows them to attend that and still get access to programming under the reimagining possibilities.
Thank you. And you did touch on this. So if Cross Keys High School becomes a CTAE or magnet school, does this mean that a child who lives down the street from Cross Keys might have to go to Chamblee or Sequoia or Druid Hills?
Right now, what we have the team working on are a couple of scenarios of about 5 different scenarios of what the possible shifts could look like. Again, will be a part of the student assignment planning on boundaries. Real conversations, they have to change. It's going to be important that we have those individuals at the table as we're thinking about changing it. And potentially, could that be the case? It could be. It very well could be that that individual may end up going to Sequoia or Chamblee or whatever it may be. But we will get there as a team and as a family collectively. This is not going to be an executive call. We won't satisfy everybody's needs, but we will do our best to be able to capture the voices of everyone who puts it in the hat so that we can discuss it, review it, and make sense of it. So that's the best way for us to really address that question as we move forward. But there's no answers now. We're here today to talk to you about joining us on this journey to identify what this could look like for us.
DeKalb has a deep history aligning vertical clusters to support community schools. How will we pivot if the community completely rejects split feeders, increase, not sure what that word is. Choice. Yeah.
I think that's a good question, but to be honest, that was a question Ms. McGinnis was put you in my air out dirty laundry. She bust me over the head over the last couple of weeks about Horton, a split feeder doesn't make sense. It's hard to factor. And so we began to think and come together around, okay, that makes sense. Could we still keep feeder alignment? The only thing would shift is that the feeder pattern would go to Sequoia Middle School to potentially Sequoia High School, and then Cross Keys becomes this unique structure in this community. Something to think about. Two-way immersion program as a magnet. We don't have to have one magnet. You don't have to have the high academic performing magnet and CTAE. You could have high performing, two-way immersion, and CTAE in this facility. So it's definitely, we're not going to split. To answer the question, we're not going to split feeder patterns. We're just shifting one from going to Cross Keys to shifting to Sequoia Middle to Sequoia High. All right.
Thank you. If only 50 students are enrolled in Cross Keys CTAE regional program, why do we believe there is a demand for exponentially greater enrollment in these programs? Ms. Gunter?
So a big part of my work, I think I took over this job about a year ago, and a big part of my work in the past year has been evaluating what's happening in the schools, happening in the communities. Through student surveys, through advisory committee surveys, meeting with principals and talking about what programs are happening in their building. A lot of our student survey data would indicate they want more access to more CTAE programs closer to where they are. Well, I can't put an EMT lab or another cosmetology lab or a culinary arts lab in every school. Those are multi-million-dollar labs. But if we have a place where we can house them and provide access for more students, then anybody in the district who wants to take a class can come, or who wants to complete a pathway can come. We do provide transportation. We do have a few instances where students who may live who may live in the DeKalb High School Tech South Zone want to come up here and take manufacturing, which is a program that's offered here. We work very hard to provide that opportunity for them when we're made aware of those opportunities. So Ms. Smith talked a lot about marketing, and that's a space and place of growth, marketing all programs in all schools to all students.
Just want to everyone close your eyes for a second and think about the ideal structure for opportunity for our students. What we currently have right now is not working. Anyone disagree? That's okay. You can be, your eyes supposed to be closed. I want mine too. But I was trying to count. No, I'm just joking. No, but if we reimagine this, the current structure that we have is not the model that we're going to carry over into this new expectation or this new image. I know there's been some scars from past experiences with us, but we're asking you to join us on this journey as we reimagine. We don't want to keep doing the same thing. Our students and families deserve better. So please know what exists right now. You might be with us. You could be with us and actually help make this decision, or you can watch it happen, because we have to do it differently. And that's the most important thing. So please know we're not speaking of like what's happening right now. We are aware that there's some challenges, but we're trying to fix that. All right. So I wanted to just say that part.
10 to 20-year construction planning being driven by annual backward-looking, lagging indicators, data seems to be the wrong strategy. Why wouldn't we plan school, plant, and regional capacity simply to cover our geography? Should I read that again? Okay.
I think there's for whoever asked that question, I would just like we'll have a side conversation with myself and Mr. Hofstadter. We can just talk about that, because we're not necessarily 20 years out. We're looking at birth rates, and there's a whole lot of other stuff that I'm not that deep that we factor into enrollment projections. Like what I learned from tonight is that we got to do a better job at getting our community to understand and to value and respect our enrollment projections. So something happened along the way, and I'm now really understanding that, and we're going to continue to work to try to get you to trust our process, and we'll even bring some of the experts in that's been doing the audits of our projections to have conversations if that's necessary.
Thank you. This is our final question, and then we'll move into our next presentation on technology updates. As of now, Cross Keys has CTAE North housed here. However, the program has changed drastically. Enrollment is down. There are only 6 pathways available. Therefore, why can't the current principal of Cross Keys be over both schools until the new school is built? It seems fiscally unsound that they have a principal and assistant principal at this time.
Currently, that's the model that we're under, right? Everybody with me? 1, 2, 3. Reimagine. No, I'm just joking. Look, there's a structure. Like I'm assuming what I can pick up is that there was a vision for our regional CTAE facility, a big vision that was supposed to be a certain way, and somewhere along the way it got shifted. And there's a whole school that our principal that she has to run that would make it very difficult. Not saying she's not capable. We know Dr. Cunningham is extremely brilliant, but running both, if it was feeding the needs that it was originally designed for, could be a challenge. We always can revisit structure, right, and personnel. That's something that we can always take into consideration. I would say that that's not necessarily something that will be done through SAP, but we'll be able to review and look at the actual needs. It may be a principal for the campus and an assistant principal that's exclusively working with CTAE. That could possibly happen, right? But I'm not promising that. There's just a lot of ways that we can revisit it. So just bear with us as we try to get this thing going. All right.
Thank you so much, Ms. Smith and Ms. Gunter. We really appreciate you. Please welcome Ms. David, Chief of IT, to give us ESPLOST 6 technology updates. Thank you.
Stand here. So good evening. I would like to give some updates on our technology projects that have been funded by ESPLOST. So right before the pandemic, our technology infrastructure needed improvements, and we knew that. And when we entered the pandemic, it was very difficult to get to the infrastructure for reasons that we all understand. We're all remote. And our focus was supporting remote learning. So then we returned from the pandemic to an already strained infrastructure with 35,000 new devices that we purchased during our remote period to ensure that all of our students had access to technology. So with this being the case, we had to enter into what we call assess, and then we had to stabilize, and then we had to plan, and then implement in terms of infrastructure, technology infrastructure enhancements. So after completing that work, this is what you see. And these projects, as Mr. Hofstadter mentioned earlier, impact all of our schools and facilities. This is for every school and every facility. So I will move on to the next one. I'll take them by our 3 goals. The first one is to improve device management. As we know, if you don't have access to a device, you really don't have access to learning because our materials are digital. Everything is digital these days. So it's really important that our students and our staff have access to up-to-date modern technology. So we refreshed during the pandemic all staff devices and all student devices. And it's time to start thinking about what the refresh of that equipment looks like. And so now we're looking at a project that will start during the next school year. We'll be refreshing all student and staff devices. Our next goal, we have a roadmap with 5 goals. So goal number 2 talks about remediating and refreshing network and data center infrastructure. So it's really, really important, of course, that you can have a device, but what does that device even connect to, right? Does no good, especially with most of our services and our cloud strategy really expanding. Most cloud strategies are expanding. So you have to have a robust, secure, and reliable network that's going to support that connectivity. So we're pretty much replacing everything. So we're replacing cabling within our infrastructure, about 21,354 network drops. We are replacing wireless access points, about 8,412 of them. And we're also replacing 2,813 switches, which is our entire switch infrastructure. So that's going to be critical, and it will definitely change the game for what we're trying to do with learning and with our hybrid work environments. Our third goal is to harden information, cyber, network, and physical security. There's not enough that can be said for this area. If you watch the news, you know this is an area that we must address consistently and continuously. So for this one, there are other projects occurring as it pertains to information network as well as cybersecurity. But I want to really focus on physical security. What we knew is that our physical security infrastructure was definitely antiquated and end of life. Some of the components within our physical security infrastructure, some of the wiring, as we went through and assessed every building, because we assessed every last building. I know we came to Cross Keys, right? Thank you, Dr. Cunningham. But we assessed every building to determine what were the needs of that building. That was one of the first questions Dr. Horton asked when I met him when he came to the district. Are we cookie cutter and just replacing what's there? Or are we going to each building to see what we need and where those blind spots are? So we made sure physical security was involved, school leadership was involved, and operations was involved, as well as IT. So this was definitely a joint effort. We are replacing all 3 components of physical security. We're talking about intrusion alarms, We're talking about physical security and door access, and we're also talking about security cameras and the entire infrastructure. So all of that is in progress and it is being replaced today. And so that really covers the technology and what's covered by SPLOST and what's funded by SPLOST. And so we are working hard and those projects are in progress. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? If you hold up your index cards, we'll be happy to take those at this time. Wow, Ms. Davis. Ms. Dillard speaking? Oh. Thank you all so much for your attendance. I'd like to ask you to do one thing, and that is you have your QR code there. If you do not have a QR code, please raise your hand and we'll get it to you. This is our thought exchange. We would very much like to hear from you related to this one simple question. Raise your QR code, Ms. Arrington. She's passing them out. Yeah. They received the, do you need one? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yes. You received the QR code once you came in. We would like to know your thoughts. As you heard Dr. Horton and Ms. Smith say the word reimagine continuously, you heard that as a running theme throughout this meeting today. If you could reimagine what the CTAE program would look like at Cross Keys High School, what would it look like to you? What would you like to see? Put your thoughts in the thought exchange. This is information that we would like to use to be able to incorporate into some of the decision making. So this is a great opportunity for your voice to be heard. This thought exchange will also be placed on the website where we put the presentation tomorrow and the video recording. So it will also be there Thursday. So please make sure you share that out. Like to remind you that Thought Exchange is confidential. We do not ask for your name, so there is no identifying information there. We're just simply interested in your thoughts. Also, you can see where you can rate a comment that someone else has made. This is really just like saying, ditto, I agree. I feel strongly about that as well. So it helps to lift it up so that we're able to see just how important it is to you. And also, there is the opportunity to use the language preference feature as well. So that can be changed to whatever preference is needed. So we ask you to please give us your thoughts. So, Dr. Horton, would you like to make closing remarks? You're good? Oh, okay.
I won't make closing remarks, but our board member will, Ms. McGinnis. And I just want to thank our comms team for being here. Let's give them a hand. There's a lot of work that goes into preparing to do this. So it'll be Thursday and Friday at the latest because we have one more tomorrow night, and we're going to make sure we post both. So,
I'm so sorry. Just one thing. We did have about 5 or 6 questions or so that will cause us to have to do some research before we're able to respond. So we will respond to those questions in writing. They will also be posted in the same place, which is where you found the flyer for this meeting. So that would be the responses to the questions, the QR code, and the presentation will all appear in one location. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McGinnis.
Thank you. And well, first, I just wanted to thank everyone who came out tonight. First, I know it was not the best notice, and this is a busy time of year, and many of you have families, and this is dinner time. So we are very sensitive to that, and I just really appreciate your involvement and engagement. I would also like to thank our staff. I mean, this is a full court press that y'all got tonight. We've got our superintendent, our cabinet, but we felt that that was important because obviously this is complex. I received most of this information, the days blur together, but maybe it was like a week and a half ago. It's a lot to digest. And again, we wanted to make sure we had all the experts here because we know that these are interconnected questions. It's not a simple question of what are we building? It's what are we doing with that building? How are we serving the students? How are we serving the community? So I did want to thank our staff for being here. And I think the last thing that I would say is clearly this is an ongoing conversation. And, I'm looking at the audience, and quite frankly, we're missing a group of people that should be here. And that's our bad for not communicating well to that community. So we need to do better. They need to be at the table. We understand that. But we are giving you an opportunity, as you heard tonight, is the future of Cross Keys as a magnet school? Is the future of Cross Keys, as was proposed, possibly a combined middle high school? If it's a magnet school, what type of magnet school is it? So this is the beginning of an ongoing conversation, and we want the community to be engaged and involved, because ultimately it's those children that are going to be attending this school, or if they're not attending this school, they're going to be at one of our neighboring middle and high schools. So please reach out to me. Please reach out to Dr. Horton. We need to hear what you are most interested in. Of what you heard tonight, what sounded like a terrible idea, tell us that. And what sounded like something that you're excited about, because we want to know that too. So I will stay after, as I always do. Please come up to me if you have questions, comments. Like I said, please email me. I respond to my emails, but I want to hear from you and I want to know what you're thinking. So thank you again for coming out tonight.
Thank you so much.